remember, October 8th, 2013. And I'm going to start by turning the meeting over to Superintendent Bear for a few moments.
Yeah, I just, I'm trying to bring closure at each school committee meeting on the events that have occurred in the last week. As you all know, Principal Tim Merritt passed away very unexpectedly a week ago Saturday. And the reason I'm bringing it forward is to let you know how proud I was of the school community for the support that was shown to all of the staff members, community members, and it's still going on. I'm getting daily emails from different students and retired teachers whose lives that Tim touched. And just letting you know that, they're doing fine. Today we appointed Ben Barshevsky as the interim principal for the remainder of the year. And Ben's going to have support from myself and Louise Law. And I'm working out the details with a retired principal to go in and coach him. And Louise Law will be going there every Wednesday to continue with the classroom observations and going over the evaluation procedure. Ben has a lot of support. I was there at the faculty meeting today, and people cheered and clapped. They were thrilled that he's going to stay and have some continuity, and then we'll post the position in the spring. Okay. So Tim was a great man, and we certainly do miss him, but he started some good things at the school, and the staff is strong, and I think they're going to continue those. So thank you.
Okay,
Do you have anything you want us to, some sort of a resolution that recognizes service or anything else you want, anything like that?
The town
I think it's already done.
The town and community are planning many tributes to him. Individually, there is a fund that was started at Greenfield Savings Bank if you wanted to donate towards that in his memory. All donations will go to improve conditions at the school. So I think, individually you could do that.
Does anyone else have a comment?
Could you, just on the agenda comment before you go into the agenda?
Excuse me?
I had an agenda question.
Oh, go ahead.
I noticed the reports have been moved to the end, and I was wondering if we could move the student report up. Chloe Nunn, who's here, had Eddie meet this afternoon at Day 1, but she also needs to get home and do her homework. So right now it's after a lot of other business. I was wondering if we could just move her report up, or if you wouldn't mind, somewhere, maybe the beginning of new business or the like.
This is the typo. This agenda follows the format for the elementary school agendas.
Okay.
Because reports for principal and student advisory always are after the
I didn't know if you were just trying something new, so I didn't.
No, but this, and I can see how the template got confused, because this is how elementary reports follow this agenda. So,
and we can follow it. I just was asking if she was.
Would you like to also go after this?
Can I go too?
No.
You can't go.
I don't have her at all on my agenda.
Well, we were. I don't think we were.
It would be under general reports,
yeah,
though. So
she should have been.
Item 7.
Nothing that says Jim.
I know.
Usually she's right up after public comment where the principal's report is.
And that's typical, but that did not happen.
Well, you can let it go in public comment, yeah.
So unless there is any comment to the negative, we will slide her right in at 4A. Student council? Okay, told you not to print them out. Told you not to send an email. See?
We're trying.
Here's
We're
the
trying.
problem.
We're trying.
This problem wasn't there last month when I got it in the mail.
It's all the computers.
That's trick one, Marty.
Okay, moving right along, we're going to review and approve the minutes of September 10th, 2013, and the special meeting minutes of September 12th, 2013. We'll start with September 10th. Well, we can do them both at the same time, right? Okay, we'll do them both. Can I have a motion,
At the
please?
top of the September 12th, it should say Thursday, not Tuesday. It says Thursday in the description, but not in the.
Can I have a motion, please?
So moved.
Second?
Second?
Any discussion other than that? All those in favor of accepting? Opposed? And abstained? Okay, financial statements, Patty?
Okay, so tonight you have before you the September report, and we do have a few variances to report. On page 1, under school committee expense, we're showing a deficit of $2,971.55. This was due to an increase in both our MARS and MASC dues. It's also compiled with the fact that last year's MAS dues were misposted to in-service expense, so we didn't have a good budget number to begin with because the dues didn't get budgeted because they weren't posted there.
This, what account were they charged to last year?
In-service expense?
Okay, and so are we going to expect a surplus there?
That the in-service expense is based on $600 per teacher for the contract, so I don't know how, that was, so.
Well,
I'm going to correct it in the budget so that the budget's reflecting the MASC dues under school committee dues.
Okay.
And instead of expense. So I will get that corrected. On page 2, under salaries retirement, we're showing a deficit of $8,531.38. This was due to an unbudgeted expense for a retirement. And also on page 2, we have league fees, athletics, showing an overage of $457.50. This was due to an increase in fees from both the PVIAC and the MIAA. Mostly it was the fee for the cost per sport and their technology fees. If no one has any questions on that, I'm going to move on.
I do on the salaries retirement. Is this somebody that retired after the 1st of July?
No.
That didn't notice?
No, it was not properly budgeted for during the budget season. They did give proper notice.
No, so that basically is an old bill. It should have been paid out of last year's. It takes a 9/10 board. That's
No, it was supposed to be budgeted in this year and didn't get budgeted.
When did the person retire?
In June.
In June, it would have been last year's expense.
No, we have a year to pay it, to give us a year of planning.
I don't know, I think it's last year's expense, but let the auditors worry about it.
In other news, our free cash was certified at $259,582 for fiscal year 2013. This was a decrease from the FY12 figure of about $62.61. Our free cash number was $265,843. And lastly, I'm going to update you on the school van. There was a lot of conversation around whether or not a 12 to 15 passenger van was still legal to use in Massachusetts by schools. And 15 passenger vans are not allowed. 12 passenger vans are allowed in Mass, but not recommended by the federal standards. They only allow the use of a 10 passenger van, which would not suit our needs.
Can I just stop you on that?
Yeah.
And I just want to go over why, because the tennis team, the golf team, spillover from cross country, and the Connecticut Valley Humanities classes all have enrollments for team membership of 12 or more. So we kind of discounted a 10-passenger van because we'd still have to go out and hire a group co or another transportation, so it wouldn't work for us.
And this is with a conversation that we had with the Registry of Motor Vehicles, their 7D specialist. So what they strongly recommend is a 14-passenger multifunctional school activity bus. And I've given you a handout of what that looks like. And they say that this is the safest vehicle to use for student transportation. It does not require a CDL or bus license. It's registered as a passenger plate, and as I said, it is a safer vehicle but does not have the safety features of a bus such as a flashing light or stop arms.
How is this, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Matt.
How is this, in what significant way does this differ from the 15-passenger van or the 12?
It's safer.
Apparently
It's
the
more-
chassis There's something that, I'm not a car person.
Built like a tank.
It's wider.
It's wider, and
Oh.
the rear is dual axles too.
I
It
see.
looks like it prevents, rollover, as opposed to those.
So
other
it's not
brands.
that there's some arbitrary standard about the number of seats. It really is a different kind of
It is.
vehicle.
Yes, it's a different way of constructing.
But just a regular license is sufficient to
It is.
drive this?
It is. This turned out to be so much more of a project than we ever thought,
But-
because the regulations have changed since the other van was purchased.
Now, is it as safe without the lights when you go to discharge people?
Well, we don't. We only let we don't drop kids off at their home with this bus. We only allow them in and out of a parking lot. So we don't use this for drop-off transportation. And this is why we are an exclusion, because it was for non-routine transportation. If it was a routine transportation, we wouldn't even be able to use this.
So this has to be for the kind of uses that we've always been using our van.
If it was to drop kids to an everyday activity or off to their homes, it would have to be more of a 7D class vehicle. So once we had this information from the Registry of Motor Vehicles, we went on to see if there was any state contracts that we could purchase this for. And we couldn't find one, but we did find a vendor who did a 30B for the Plymouth County Cooperative. So our next step was to contact OSD to see if we would be allowed to purchase from the Plymouth County Cooperative, and they said we could if Plymouth allowed us. So this morning I contacted the Plymouth County, and they said no. We have to join at the RFP inception and pay a $750 fee. So that leaves us to do our own procurement. We have a good estimate from the vendor that the cost would be between $50,000 and $55,000 to purchase, and which would require a sealed bid procurement for us to do. So we're looking for your approval to proceed with this type of purchase, and Bob Lesko and I would continue to get out an RFP for this and have bids. We have to post for at least 2 weeks. We have to post in a major newspaper of local circulation, and then get sealed bids.
Is there a lift in that patio?
No.
No.
My next question is, this is for the 16 passenger, correct?
This is a 14 passenger.
This is the 4, they don't,
Back page doesn't have 14.
It's
This
actually
one.
15 if you count the driver.
now, if we got a bigger bus than that, would we have bigger requirements from the state?
I didn't ask that question because I didn't think we were looking for anything bigger than the 14.
Well, I'm just
Your
wondering.
license would change.
Yeah.
Well, that's my question.
Right.
I think so.
Your ability to drive it would then be changed. You'd have to have somebody who has a Class 2 license.
Well, that was the purpose of the question, was to find out if, because if we took the 16 passenger and it would have two wheelchairs permissible in it, you might be able to use it for some of your special ed work. And, depending upon availability, but it give you some more flexibility. That was the purpose of my question. I don't know.
I don't think that comes standard. I think that those are options that you can get.
I don't know, they show it here, that's all I'm saying.
They show it the 15 too, but that's not the one we're getting.
Yeah.
They show 15 with 2 wheelchairs, front lift. That's why I asked if it had it. No, you can get it. That's what you want.
You just have to pay more.
Right.
Well, I mean, if you're going to pay $55,000, and if you can pay 60, and it would
Oh, I bet it's
give you
more
some
than
more
that.
flexibility,
Yeah, it's more than that, too.
I don't know either.
I don't know.
I can tell you one thing, the finance committee's not going to be too happy when we told them it was going to cost, 30 some odd before, or what? And all of a sudden it is 55?
Well, the one I'm looking at that was quoted for us does not include the wheelchair lift. We purchase it without the wheelchair lift.
Yeah.
So it would probably be more to add those options in.
So can I just ask, what was the estimated price for the less safe, more rollover prone, more dangerous for our children's option?
We were guessing 30,000.
We were guessing.
The problem is they don't make those vans any longer. Then we had a 14-passenger van for schools, and the registry no longer allows those for school use. But the law is very vague. They don't come out and say you can't use them. They say we strongly advise that you don't. Which implies to me if you get into an accident, There's no guarantee. Is that the way you interpret
Or if
it?
you, even if, she even said if you got pulled over, you would, the state trooper or local police may ticket you for having the wrong type of registration, you could be fined.
Because I agree in principle with safest possible, but I'm also open to less safe option if it's a considerable cost saving. And we make that decision. If we were all about maximum safety and transporting our kids, we would mandate seatbelts on school buses. But we don't do that in this country.
The problem is, Phil, for us to go to a cheaper version, you're going down to 10 passengers. And that won't help us. We'd still have to go out
So this
to
is just
bid.
this is about what they allow schools to register.
My personal belief is that most schools go out to bid and hire. That's why you see these enormous school buses pulling up to a tennis match with 5 people in them, because they do everything through their bus contract. Which if we were to do that, it would be about $150 to $200 a day per activity. So, but that's why you don't see, and I think that's why we were surprised how complicated this was, because very few schools have that. They just throw it in with their regular bid.
Well, I tell you one thing, we should have it outfitted with seat belts.
I think these come with seatbelts, this size.
I don't know.
I don't disagree.
We have these at my school.
Do you?
I think we have 4 now. And we have seatbelts. We don't have any chairlifts, and they're not equipped for wheelchairs, but they're a 15-person bus. It's a small bus.
I don't know. I just scanned the option. I didn't see it there, but I'm not a good reader. Maybe it's there. I didn't see it. Well, I'm very apprehensive about spending $55,000 on something that we basically told the Selectmen and Finance Committee we were going to spend about $30 on. And we got some decent options and reasons why we're doing it, but we need to have it made their idea before we go out and spend all that money. You know.
I don't see it.
I don't see that.
It doesn't
I
even
think
say
we
driver.
press that.
Maybe it's just not on here, because it doesn't even say driver's seatbelt. Correct.
So are you asking our permission to continue looking into this?
To go out to bid, to purchase one.
Anybody got any
Using
comments?
using the money that we put in the stabilization fund, the last.
You know, we have to beg money from the finance committees and the selectmen and everything else. I certainly don't want to we told them before we were going to do 30, we transferred money to stabilization so we'd have some money available to do it. But then to go out and spend $55,000, $60,000, we're asking for problems when it comes time for our budgets to go through. I mean, if we go to them and say, you know, this is what we're coming up with, and we'd like to, we've gone to bid, and we've got 30 days to either accept the bid or not, and do you have any objection to any of it? And, you know, if they buy into it, that's fine, but I don't want to back into it and have them turn around and say, you guys went out and did what the hell you wanted. And I'm just afraid.
Gary?
Well, it's just the expense of the van is coming no matter what, you know, in the sense of that we have to go to these events where we can start, you know, or you guys are going to be voting to cancel certain teams and certain trips and that kind of part of the curriculum. And so that's, you know, I mean, right now we're spending, the last 2 months we spent well over $3,000 in, you know, would have spent well over $3,000 if we didn't have the loaner from the after-school program, you know, and it was generous of them to give it up for 2 months for us to use, but it would have been that much money. And so let's talk about 5 years. What's the lifespan of this van? Let's just say 5 years. It'll pay for itself. You know, and I hope we get 10 years.
I don't dispute that. What I'm concerned more of is the fact that we told the selectmen we were going to probably spend about $30,000
When did we tell
to
them
do
that?
this.
Where's this coming from?
Well,
They came in last month and asked us to take 40
No,
of the
we
76 that was left over and put it into stabilization, and we put it all in instead.
Yeah.
But when did we ever tell them we were going to spend 30
Back
or 40?
last spring.
They told us they weren't going to give us any money.
But last
For a van.
spring, that's what we told them we were going to spend on a van.
Well, that's what we thought it was going to be.
That's my
Yeah,
point.
that's-
Yeah,
Right.
I mean,
Nat's got the floor.
Yeah, I would say, I think it's fine to, in the next long-range planning meeting or the next time you meet with the select board, to tell them that what we anticipated being able to buy for $30,000 is no longer on the market. Something that we could get for $30,000 doesn't meet our needs, and what would meet our needs is going to cost $55,000, and let them know that was the situation. But quite honestly, we didn't ask and we didn't receive any money for the van from the towns, and I don't think we should give the select board, however important it is to consult with them, select board's veto power over stuff that we have the legal statutory authority to spend or not spend money on. This is our elected responsibility, and I think we should vote on it. We shouldn't be asking the select board to veto whether we're going to purchase a van or not.
6 months less than a school year, $3,000 a month, that's 18, I think, if I do the math right.
Anyone else? Did you have something? No.
It's one. I would just sort of echo that, and in particular, it's I would advise against empowering finance committees in any way, just in that they are strictly advisory to select boards. And our kids deserve something like this, no doubt. I would ask that if we could do in the bidding process. Can you put out a bid for a used one and a new one, and take the best one, take the best of both, or take either? If the used one that comes in through the bid is not satisfactory, we reject it and take the new one. Can we do something like that? I mean, these vehicles are out there. It's not. We wouldn't be custom designing one.
for used vehicles, but if you look at what type of vehicle this is, they're probably hard-ridden used vehicles. I mean,
Maybe.
you're talking about you're mostly airport transportation.
My question is it possible to test the waters in that regard without making a commitment?
Yeah, you can put up the bid and you put the specs in. You can, when the bid comes in, you can make the choice. Whatever we think is most cost-effective for us. That's what the board wants to do.
To me, that makes the eventual presentation to the select board or to the town more bulletproof.
What presentation?
Eventually,
That's money that belongs to us.
Okay.
If I have to present something to them every time I want to spend a dime up here, I quit.
We have that money.
Yeah. You have voted that money into the account. We did not have the full detailed information of the actual expenses last year. And it was the best guesstimate at the time. But you have put that money into a reserve fund, and it was to cover the cost of the van and any other safety items as you all deem necessary. The problem with going for used, in my opinion, is that the vans that we've purchased in the past have all been new, and we've gotten 11, 12 years out of them. I don't think you're going to get that.
Yeah, I would never want to obligate you to have to get used, but I would be interested to see whether there's something out there that might meet our needs and that you might be willing. I wouldn't want to tie your hands and force you to do it, though. But I would think it might be worth checking into. It might not be. You have more experience in this purchasing area than I do.
We do have to remember that safety is first. We cannot send home letters saying, oh, we're going to put safety second and see what we can find out there. We really need to stick with safety, and I personally don't think we should inherit anybody else's problems, because there are reasons that you get rid of things. Do we really want to go that route, or do we want to get something, at least go out to bid for something that we can possibly get 11 years out of?
I agree with you. Can you do a dual track thing without much additional effort?
Up to
Well,
Wait,
time
you
is a little bit of the essence. The out-of-school time program has been extremely generous in volunteering their van. So we've had it for the month of September. We'll have it for the month of October. We wait until the next school committee meeting. That'll be the month of November. I'm not sure they're going to be able to do that. I don't know if we're going to have
Well,
to start
We're going to have
contacting.
to wait till November.
Deb Lane is expecting it back in November.
Okay, so then we're going to have to contact DeGrifco anyway for the month of November.
Right, she said first week of November, we have to
Okay.
get that, so.
And how long does it take to get one of these in?
That's what we don't know, Cindy. We don't know
I
the
think it's a little bit
delivery.
longer than a month.
Right. We don't know what the delivery time would be.
Well, if we go to bid, we should certainly put the seat belts on it, okay? And if you want, you can ask for the same type of specs on a used one with mileage less than 10,000 or 15 or 25. And so we can do some comparative shopping. We meet in November, we can decide to which one we want to purchase. And because you're going to have to vote the money out of the stabilization or whatever the name of the account is, and I think it takes a 2/3 vote. So it's not like just putting it on a warrant.
And what is the mileage limit the committee would like to see on the bid for the used
I'd
vehicle?
like no more than 20.
I was going to say 10, but I don't think you'd probably find 10.
How many
Between
miles do we?
15 and 20?
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
How many miles do we put on a vehicle a year?
Correct.
The
We got
buses that I investigated, the people were looking to get rid of that were used all had over 100,000.
Yeah.
What's how many miles on a van?
112.
Well, yeah, it was well over.
So that's 10,000 miles a year, man.
You know, you can put it out there, we just don't need to expect it to be there.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly,
If something happens, somebody ordered one and changed their mind, they need to buy out.
exactly,
Other than that,
exactly.
Do we want to put down any other alternates in the bid specs?
what if we can get a used one, Bob, and it doesn't have safety belts?
If we decide to buy it, we buy it the way it is.
Oh, okay.
I'd rather see seat belts on it, right?
Preferred seatbelt. No, I don't think that's a must.
Move to proceed with the bid process, Madam Chairman, new and used.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Opposed?
20,000.
Okay, moving along, Patty, do you have anything else?
No, I'm done. Thank you, Cindy.
All right then.
Said strongly. So we'll move on to public comment. Hearing none, we'll move on to student advisory council report.
So student council's met a few times in the last 4 weeks. And right now we are planning games for the pep rally on next Friday. And we're also thinking about an event near November 11th because last year we did the plaques for the veterans. So we're thinking about doing something else, not as big as we did last year, but just something to kind of continue doing. The Regional Student Advisory Council, we had our first meeting last Friday, and we didn't vote on what we were doing, but it was kind of agreed upon that we were going to go with what the State Advisory Council was doing, and that's digital learning. Massachusetts is quite low in that area compared to the other states, so they decided that all the schools in the state could benefit from that, and that's why they decided to focus on digital learning. And this month, they want schools to do speed tests that test the broad and width of the school. And you can, it's just on a website. I have the URL, but it's schoolspeedtest.org/Massachusetts.html, and you can do it from any computer. You just go onto it, plug in some information, it tests it, and comes up with numbers that are sent to the database they have. And they want to see, after they collect the data, they want to try and get all schools to have 100 Mbps everywhere in their school. And they'd like to see schools doing 10 to 20 tests throughout the day in all different locations in the school. And I mean, anyone can do a test. A student can log on, a teacher can log on, anyone can do it. And the school with the most tests gets a Staples gift card. They did not tell us how much it was for. So I believe we're getting emailed a poster to put up to encourage students and teachers to participate in this. They demonstrated it at Northampton, and the upload speed in Northampton is about 9, which is quite low because they would like it to be 100. And this, I mean, the schools vary, but they're kind of all around the same thing, which is quite low compared to the 100 that they would like to be at. That's basically what we talked about there. Questions?
Anybody got any questions? Comments? Thank you very much. We'll try to keep you up around 4:08.
We hope we get speedy results.
Okay, moving on to unfinished business, policy BEAA, bus riding eligibility. And I will turn this over to the superintendent.
You have multiple policies in front of you, so we'll try to take them one at a time. This first one was brought to you for consideration and discussion last month. And if you remember back to our May or June meeting of last year, when we had a family who requested, a school choice family, to do transportation, and you agreed to amend this policy, to create this policy. It did exist in 2 of the other schools. So that's what this is. The policy BEDB1 and BEDB2, agenda preparation and dissemination, and agenda format, and open meeting, and executive session, and release of executive session, are multiple policies that we have rewritten based on the law and condensed. So we're asking you to delete those policies and accept the new policies. And then policy BEC, BEC1, and BEC2 are the same thing. Those, as they were presented to you last month, are policies that have been amended and updated, and we are asking you to delete those and vote those in. Does that make sense?
So, does anyone have any questions on any of aforementioned policies?
I asked
Go ahead, Bob.
inquired as to whether or not we would be lose anything if we were found to have an ineligible rider, and to make sure that if we did this, that we wouldn't lose any of our transportation aid. And I asked to have somebody check into that. I don't know if anybody's checked into that. But
I don't believe that we would, as long as that we don't count those riders in the counts.
what? Then you would be submitting a false and fraudulent report if you didn't include those riders.
No, because they ask you to exclude them.
I just want to make sure that if we decide to adopt this as a formal policy, we voted an exception for 1 or 2 children, I think in May or June. But if we vote this as a policy, then it could be an awful lot of children. I have a couple grandchildren that are school choice kids in the elementary, and what if their mother decided to have them dropped off at someplace in Deerfield by the Keg and Cork or someplace up in there, and you'd have to be responsible for transporting them to there.
I believe it said only on existing bus routes.
That's an existing bus route.
It is? Then I don't know that that would be a problem.
As long as there's space available, students may ride to it.
Yeah, but what I'm just trying to say is, if you get 10 kids that are riding the bus that aren't a mile and a half or whatever the current regulation is for transportation aid, right? And they're not eligible because they're not residents of the district, we could end up with having, if you got 150 students and you got 15 that aren't eligible, you could lose 10% of your aid.
Isn't they're looking at, when they look at those numbers, they're looking at what we contracted GRIPCO for number of riders. These aren't going into that contract. They're just stops that are being added along the way. You know what I mean? So the additional, so when we set up what the bus routes are, they're given a list of every student in the school, and that's what their contract is bid out of number of heads. we're not giving them a list, and on that list you are going to find a couple school choice drop stops. These are things that are handed to the bus drivers, additional students add on. And also to let you know, there's only been one student doing this who was requested to do this. So we're not talking about massive numbers.
I just don't want to buy a problem.
Right, but I'm just trying to say, I
Right.
believe that's where they're getting their numbers from, is from that initial, that's the only place you can get the numbers. Because unless someone's standing with a clicker, and if you do that during the fall sports season, you
Nobody's on the bus
got
anyway.
2/3 of the bus missing. So that's what I'm saying, that's the only place where that kind of information's documented, would be in that contract. And that's the only place you can pull it from.
Unless the State Board of Education decided to do an audit, and they actually reviewed
Ride our
it.
buses?
Yes.
I don't know if they do that.
Has that never happened?
I have some friends that used to.
I never heard of it.
I have some friends that used to audit some of that stuff, so
Okay.
that's why I'm.
So Bob, where is the problem if they discover that we're not asking them money for every child? And if there's additional
No, but they're
children-
going to turn around and say, if you're transporting 150 and 15 of them aren't eligible, they're going to say, well, we're going to reduce the aid for that.
But we're not claiming them.
But
as
we
aid.
were
We're not
only
gonna claim
asking
them.
for 135 in that example of yours. So
Maybe.
where is the problem
I
that
just,
there's additional?
I just think it's a bad policy.
I do have a concern, or just a question. If there was to be an accident on that bus and we had school choice children, how would that liability affect the school? Or would it be the bus driver? Or I'm assuming the bus company is buying into this and they're okay with it?
They
So
are,
if
because
somebody gets hurt and they're not counted on our bus route, is that a problem?
they would be counted just like you had any child going to visit Sally after school and had permission.
So the liability would cover everybody?
It covers everybody.
Okay.
It's been in existence in Conway, I believe, for 2 or 3 years, and same thing in Whately for 2 or 3 years. And to be honest with you, I know it's important to look at worst-case scenarios, but we really are talking less than a handful of kids
That ride it?
that ride it.
I set people on the bus. Anyone else?
I just add in Whately, it's part of our contract now. We went through this with the bus company there, but we're negotiating with the bus company. A number of students are on there. We're only asking for reimbursement for the ones who are reimbursable.
Correct.
There's
in
no
Whately-
violation.
In Whately, you don't get any reimbursement
That's true.
because it's not part of a regional school district.
That's right, but we're not.
We still do the reporting.
We're not asking for
Yeah.
202 reimbursements if we have 200 kids who are eligible to ride, just because we have 2 school choice students.
Anyway, I intend to, have decided if I will abstain or I won't, or I'll vote
Okay.
against it, because I don't think we should do it. What you did before and made the exception doesn't bother me, all right? But I don't want a standard policy going forward.
Anybody else, any other questions or comments about that? Or
I thought this was a very sensible policy, and I know it helps parents out. All for it.
I have another question about release of executive session minutes. Is that supposed to be done in executive session? Do we have to go into executive session to vote to release executive minutes and then come out?
There's 2 schools of thought on that, because we did get our attorney's opinion. Annually, you should release your executive session minutes. One school of thought is you do need to go into executive session to release those executive session minutes, that they now become a public document. The other school of thought is that you don't have to do that. I have presented the same policy at the other 2 town meetings, and we have not gone into executive session to vote to release them. I don't have anything definite.
So you haven't.
If we have voted to
Go into
accept the
executive
minutes?
session to vote to release them, but you don't release the minutes of that meeting until for a year.
Right.
Then how the hell did they get released?
But how can you release how can you release secret minutes in a non-secret situation? You would
Because
have
at
to
this
go
point, they're no
in to
longer
review them.
secret, because they're no longer.
They are until we release them.
They are.
But we're releasing them because they're no longer
They're the ones that
need.
counsel
But we're
says-
releasing them in a public situation and not an executive session. I'm just going for that point of law. I'm not saying there's such secret squirrel minutes that they
This
can
is
never
the
be
kind of stuff
released.
that's just the government.
It's just crazy. I'm sorry.
Just
Matt.
asking, to point of clarification, our lawyer gave you no guidance on this question.
Not clear guidance, no,
Oh.
because the same question came up. If we go into executive session, to release the executive session minutes. Does that executive session minutes now become part of the releasable executive session?
We can't tell anybody we released them because we did it in executive session. And you haven't released that session for another year yet, so.
You make your executive session public?
No, I
I
don't
don't
think
believe you can do that.
Because you invite
You
who
can
you
only
want
open
in.
it out, you can't open up the door.
We only released the
What's
ones
your
that she said
reason
we
for
could
going
release.
into executive session? What does your motion say to go into
If
executive
you go
session?
into executive session, it'd be to review the minutes that you would like to release in an executive
Correct.
session.
But is that one of the reasons allowed to have an executive
I'm not sure
session?
that's an
I
allowable.
believe it is.
I think you have to go over and see if they're accurate.
There's two schools of thought.
Yeah.
If there's two schools of thought, I say pick one.
That was funny.
I like your wisdom.
I guess
Cut to the
going
chase.
on, as you said, Alexis, if that's true, if our council did not give clear indication, then we should do the simplest form and blame her.
And like I said, what we did at the other two meetings is that
And refer to council.
yeah, we released executive session minutes in an open session. We did not go into executive session to release.
And we've done it before here.
I know, it doesn't
We
mean we
did
were
so.
right.
We did so in Amherst as well.
You did it so as well, okay.
Again, it doesn't mean we were
I serve on
right.
Amherst School Committee. We did it in
Ignorance of
open
the law is
session.
no defense.
We did not go to executive session to release the Amherst.
There's not very many reasons you can go into executive
No.
session.
To release executive minutes.
I don't think that's.
I don't think so.
Don't think it's part of it.
Who's going to go to jail?
Ready to
Well,
attack these?
I think
Probably
we're ready.
ready.
Do you want to tackle one at a time, or do you want to tackle them as a group? Okay, we're gonna attack these one at a time, so
I haven't seen anything.
Move the amendment to policy EEAA.
could I have a second?
Second.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of? Opposed?
Now you got to do a roll call because it's a weighted vote.
No, I'm for.
Abstain? I'm pretty sure it's just one vote.
This is page 2.
Okay. I should do a roll call.
I don't care.
You're weighted, but not that much.
I know.
Judy?
I've been losing weight. I know. It's bad.
Yes.
Yes. And it's not here. Phil?
Yes.
Nat?
Yes.
Bob?
No.
Justine?
Yes.
Alexis?
Yes.
William? Mary?
Yes.
The yeses have it.
I knew that. Now we have it.
Okay, go ahead, Bill.
Move to delete policies BEDB-1, BEDB-2, BEC-1, BEC-2, BEC-3.
And a second?
Second.
Any further discussion?
Yeah.
Bob?
No, never mind.
Hearing no more? All those in favor?
Move the adoption of policies BEC, BEC-1, and BEC-2 as proposed.
Hearing a second?
Second.
Any other further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed?
Move to accept the amendment to policy BH2.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? I actually have further discussion on that one too. In the last paragraph on that, it says, therefore, in order to ensure compliance, the superintendent's executive secretary will be copied on all school committee related electronic correspondence between and among members of the school committee. Is that a quorum or is that a twosome?
Tuesday.
If it says all, does it mean if Mary emails me a question about the school committee policy because we're not a quorum? Does it still have to go to Donna? It does say all, which would, I guess, point at either if Alexis emailed me with a question about some policy, where before it wouldn't be a quorum, so it would be okay, but it does say all.
I thought you weren't supposed to do anything in email in terms of policy.
You can as long as you don't have a quorum. Like we couldn't email everybody, what do you think about this question? But she could certainly email me. before we could. But according to this, we still can, we just have to CC Donna into anything we write to.
I have a question. If we all had our own school committee email address, right, and we emailed something out to one of, or whoever we did it, then who's ever keeping track of our account would have that record there. And then we wouldn't have to worry about copying Donna or somebody else. I mean, if we had a school committee email address and we sent something to somebody, it could go, and we wouldn't have to sit there and include Donna every time, because in theory, anybody who had access to our accounts could look it up. I don't know.
Now you not only want me to remember to print the 40 pages, now you want me to remember the other email address so I can get to the 40 pages.
Well, I know that.
And I think, Madam Chairman, I think that there's two different issues under the open meeting law. One is about the quorum and about deliberations, and that it wouldn't be a deliberation if you just go back and forth with each other. But the second part of that, I think, is the public records. And I think even if it's just a one-on-one conversation, if it's about a pending matter and it's electronic, I think that the reason that they're wanting you to copy it is because I believe technically all communications are public records between elected officials if it's a pending matter before. So I think that those are two separate areas of the open meeting law that there's a little bit of a disconnect between, maybe, but that's my understanding of it.
Would you like me to get further clarification on this?
I believe it means all. So.
No, I believe it means all.
And it doesn't matter if it's a quorum.
Right.
In just our
But
conversation here. But that was a question that I had.
I haven't
because
asked
we
that
have
question.
many time talked one-on-one.
But could you also find out if we ended up with our own email addresses that?
I'm not sure what you meant by that, Bob.
Well, I've noticed that some of the people on the collaborative have email addresses from their schools that they use. They don't use their personal emails.
Darius?
I serve in Amherst when
Right.
all school committee members are given a district email.
They are given a
And
district email.
it's just like it's a group-wide system. All emails are archived within the system. So
Which
if
might
you
be
ever,
something to
if
look
there's
into
any
to avoid
litigation,
this.
it's always there.
That's my point.
Is that something that you would like? Would you check it?
You can also have it. You could also have it forwarded to your
Right.
personal account.
Right.
Okay.
Correct.
So it's causing that whole chain. It's a big hassle. And I'll be honest, there's a disconnect even within our board. I never checked the school email. I didn't get that when I showed up at the meeting because it's you're checking multiple accounts.
But
So
if you
there
can
is a
forward-
hassle
but
to it.
if you
there
can
is-
forward it, you don't have to worry about keeping
Right.
track of anything.
Right. I have to get on that. I just haven't had time.
No, but see, you know my point.
Yeah, I understand.
We already check it all the time for our kids anyway.
So I guess I don't think we need further. We just have to understand that means all. That we have to CC Donna or the executive secretary, who is Donna Hathaway at this point.
Would you like me to check into obtaining school email accounts for you as a side issue? Justine's saying no.
I'm
Go with
so good
somebody
without
email
having that.
addresses, please no.
I'm just really happy I remembered to print this for tonight.
Okay.
But
I do think that there should be some sort of communication to every board member to let them know, obviously, that this is the policy and that we really need to, abide by this. And again, you're breaking that open meeting law by not CCing Donna.
Right. And it could be just to cover ourselves.
Right.
If there is a situation saying that not only did I talk to you, I talked to everyone else, and they can pull up that email and ship it. It did.
Right.
So just to err on the side of safety. Okay, any other discussion on that? Hearing none, all those in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. Okay, we can see that.
Kevin Murphy scheduled? I don't see him.
Nope, I don't see it.
Okay.
We had student trip to Ireland. Did Kevin Murphy send it?
And I don't have information to.
Okay.
Okay, well, next say that. Moving along, MCAS results, Darius?
Absolutely. All right, everyone should have 2 handouts in front of you, and we'll kind of go through it, try to keep it very straightforward. We appreciate it.
To release these minutes.
The first one I want to look at should say Frontier Regional Spring 2013 MCAS results, the one without the big black border on the top. All right. And I'll kind of walk you through this, what you see many times posted in papers and that kind of thing. It's the most general report you'll see. This report in front of you is the district scores. And the numbers that you're looking at are percentages. Okay? When you're looking at, for example, first column, advanced to 47 under school, that's 47%. Although our classes are all near 100, so it gets really confusing very quickly. I many times find myself going back and forth. Okay? So look at the positives. If you look at, starting with the grade 10, you look at proficient or higher. You look at English language arts. Again, we've had a history of doing very well there, 94%. Mathematics, 93%. In science and technology, which is mostly biology, with a few students taking the technology exam at 88. Those are great scores. And when you look at the far end of warning and failing, those would be students that are not reaching the MCAS goal for diploma. And again, I need to emphasize that those are district numbers, okay? And you could do some quick math, but over 50% of those are out-of-district placements in the failing category. So if you do the math, some of that is, you can get some of those numbers down, okay? Basically, going down, you can see traditionally, again, our English in middle school is strong and continues to be strong. Not as strong as the high school, but certainly above state average and doing well there. Math, we saw an improvement in 7th grade, but we're looking to improve 8th grade. It was kind of there were several factors that we feel we're trying to put our finger on what's going on there. We went to a new schedule in the 8th grade last year, where we went from 3 teams to 2. At the same time, implemented the Common Core state standards. So we changed the curriculum, changed the setup of how math was being done, and so this year what we've done is a new schedule has been tweaked by the teachers. There's more time for they have created advisory period where the students are getting extra help. We have a math lab model that's now reaching all students, and so all students are receiving more math. And so we hope that and the teachers having a better knowledge of the curriculum is going to see a movement back up. So that's kind of where we're at there. And you also have to remember last year, if you remember, I have Sarah here to bail me out in case you ask any really tough questions. Last year was a big bump year for us, and I'll talk about that as we look at the next page, but we had an outstanding math class that really sent our numbers through the roof at the higher level. ELA, we looked at that with the English department. We found the one area of weakness that we want to address is that our scores in open response, for the most part, overall we did well, but the one area we saw that open response answers lacked behind the general response areas, meaning that percentage-wise we did, I don't want to say we did worse, we did poorly compared to the overall test there. So we created, the department's working on creating a open response study group. They're looking at these questions, and part of their professional development this year is working more with writing and argument writing, which will help out in that area. So that's kind of that first page. Any questions on first page? And then I'm going to go into and talk about something that's really going to bog you over, but the accountability data, which is how the state determines what level we are. But again, looking at any questions, I know it's been dropped right in front of you, and I certainly can take them later as well if you have time to go through it and look at it. We have met with each department, gone through the test scores. Our general scores versus the state's general scores. We look at every problem that that they allow us to look at, that we didn't do well on, to kind of break down areas where, where students were lacking, try to figure out why, how they get that problem wrong. They even tell us what questions they got wrong and what they chose. So we can look at why was 40% of our class getting this wrong? Is it the way we're approaching it? Is it a trick question? Sometimes, to be honest, what they say, it's just a terrible question. But in some cases, did we not cover that enough? That kind of thing. So they're constantly looking at, the teachers are constantly looking at those kind of things as well. All right?
I would just hope that they're not constantly looking at it, actually.
Well, constantly, I guess, we do spend some time looking at it, though. We do, as a department, because we're looking at the whole picture. But you're right, they're not constantly looking at it. Thanks. Okay, so I'll move on to accountability data. This basically is what the state does to figure out where you are, what level school you are. And what they do is there's 7 criteria in order to figure out where we stand as a school. Okay, and then there's extra credit. There's 6 extra credit criteria. So if we look at the first column of English language arts, okay, and let me go into the scoring system, which is on the back page of your handout. If you're above target, you get 100 points. If you're on target, you get 75 points. If you're improved but below target, you get 50 points. If there's no change, you get 25, and 0 if you've declined. Okay, and so if we look at English language arts, this year we got a 75, which is basically on target for narrowing the proficiency gaps. Okay, student growth percentiles. Okay, that's below target but improved. And one of the problems we run with English language arts is the ceiling is getting so high that it's tough to push up even higher. Getting that top group to be moving even further up is a lot more difficult. And then the 2 extra credits you're looking at the credit for decreasing the warning and failing of 10% or more in advance. And we did not do that in one group. In one group, there was no change. And then going into mathematics, you can see last year we had that 100. That was the big bump year, where just the score was really. These kids just did really, really well. We had to get those bump years of groups of students that perform well. We try to figure out why they perform better than other groups, but many times it's just statistically, where some groups are at. So again, 75, which is above. On target. Student growth is, basically we were really. That's where those 8th grade scores, I believe, that's where we lost that growth there, because our growth was not as good there. And again, in the decreasing advanced and warning and advanced and failing, we had declined. And then science, again, we going through that, we had no change in both proficiency and decreasing warning and failing, but we did decline in the number advanced. And that, again, is the middle school scores. The high school scores were actually very good overall of the biology. And I can go into that more if you want me to. Annual dropout rate, there was no change, and the cohort graduation rate is on target. So that means the same number of students going through, who started with us, end with us.
Question.
Sure.
What are the targets?
With the target number...
How do you find out? I understand that some of these things, we're hitting a target, we're missing a target, we're nicking a target. And you're saying, for example, English language arts, the target's pretty high.
Correct.
Is there somewhere on this form that tells us what the target actually is?
It is...
If you remember years ago when I used to come with that little graph, maybe if probably Louise did it at the elementary school, there was this line that the nation, the federal government drew, and we're all going to be at 100% in 2013.
This year we are
2014. Well, 2014, and they all of a sudden had to change the game. So the target is still that theoretical line, and they've adjusted a little bit. And the reason why that 75 we're on target for ELA is because we're still so high above the target that we're still getting points for being on target because we're hovering above. And so this, in answer to your question, no, this chart doesn't tell you. And you can find it online. If you go into the Frontier piece, it'll tell you exactly where we decline, where we decrease. There's a whole other chart that Darius could have brought and shared a whole bunch more numbers with you. But it is locatable. You can locate it and find out what the target is. So you've got to guess that it's pretty close. If you go back to the page before with CPI, you can see the English language arts for grade 10 is 97.6, for 8th grade is 90.6, and for 7th grade is 90.9. And I believe the target is somewhere around 90 these days for English language arts. And you can see if you took those three numbers together, weighted it for the number of students that took it, we would actually be above that 90 threshold, and that's why they give us points for on target.
What makes, from 2012 to 2013, the total points awarded goes down quite a bit. The annual PPI goes down. Both those things sounds like they're good things that you want lots of, but 2012 we don't meet target, but this year we do.
Last year we actually did meet target in English language arts. We were above target in math, and we were met target in science. So last year was one of those years that Darius just talked about. 82, holy cow. I mean, that was a really, really big number for us to get, and we knew that that was not nearly a sustainable number. If we had had 82 again, we would have actually been a level 1 school instead of a level 2 school because it's such a high number, the PPI.
And the goal is 75. If you look at that, the annual PPI, the goal is 75 from 2012 on. The 54, that was before they added the bonus points that they had to give to schools that were closer.
Is the goal considered to be a realistic, achievable goal, or is it considered to be an aspirational goal?
That's a really good question and a really debatable point. I think it's a really challenging goal, and I think in a school our size, with the numbers that we're talking about, it bumps so much from year to year that it really does become unachievable in some cases. But with study, there's room for improvement. So in other words, we're not just signing off and saying there's no way we can ever meet this goal, forget it, we're going to give up. But the way that we're going to keep on improving is studying those tests and improving certain areas that we feel are worthwhile improvement, such as argument writing. I mean, that is a worthwhile endeavor to take on argument writing and to kind of improve the open response that our students are given. But if they were telling us that something that our school as a whole didn't value, we'd have a hard time kind of rallying education around something that isn't going to be worthwhile. And so this is really one data point in all of the other data points that we're using. And if this data point supports something that we believe is important as a whole, I'm not really sure I'm answering your question, but...
Well...
And to throw another curve in it, we're starting to look at professional development now to start looking at the PARC test, which alters slightly what the test is going to be looking at and how it's going to be questioning kids. So just to make it more confusing, everything you all learned, we're going to have to reteach, and because I don't know how they're going to do the reporting methods out of the PARC test. They're going to follow the same format. You may know that, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's going to be much more rigorous. I expect to see scores decrease actually once the PARC comes into play, and I don't expect it to only decrease for our school. I think it's going to be a nationwide decrease in achievement, and they'll be using reports out about the failing nation and all of those kinds of things. So in some areas, I do think some of the goals are achievable, but I think in some places, there's always, across the country, you see a drop in middle school scores overall, because you're going from an elementary environment where the primary focus is on English language arts and mathematics, with social studies and science as supplementary types of topics for students, to middle school where now they're spending equal time in English, math, science, and social studies. And high school for us, because of block schedule, they actually get more English language arts and more mathematics at the high school level because of the way the block schedule follows. So we're advantaged scheduling-wise at the high school, and at the elementary school and the middle school, it's one of those transition periods where they're really transitioning into studying different subjects, science and social studies in particular.
I have a question. Is there anything that we need to do to improve our score performance? Is there some place that we're lacking in foresight?
I mean, that's the million-dollar question, so to speak. That's what we look at every year. We look at all the data with the teachers. It's not just them in a vacuum to find out why we went wrong. Sometimes like last year, the math department sat back and just kind of cheered because it was just this amazing group. But there's been years before that where it was what happened with it. Why was this group different than the other groups? And then looking through the tests, they try to figure out where, within the curriculum, did they make sure they cover everything? Sometimes you say, I spent 6 weeks on that. How did they get this wrong? And then, or you have, you know what? We didn't spend enough time on that, and that's what we're going to have to address this year in our curriculum. So that's the constant adjustment, constantly adjusting to the test. That's being tweaked and changed over time as well.
But we have sufficient staff.
But
we're not lacking in staff. That was my point.
Yeah.
Any other comments or questions? Thank you. Okay, moving on to the two policies and superintendent.
Yes, you have included the new changes to the anti-bullying policy, and this actually is law, and the changes change the term aggressor to perpetrator, and to include members of school staff in the bullying to students and adult to adult. So I have asked the other school committees to actually do a vote on the same night that it's presented, because you're not really in a position to amend this policy. You're voting to accept this policy.
It doesn't say school committee.
So it is the law. So you're not voting to amend it. You're voting to accept the law as part of our policy. And did it come through on yours where it's blue? The changes were done in blue?
Yes. Mine did.
Some of us don't have color printer.
So now you all want colored printer. And an iPad.
Is there any way to change that along with our email addresses?
On the monitor, though, it came through in the monitor. The color.
Yeah, there you go.
You could tell in the you could tell in the monitor.
Okay. All right. Well, good.
Yeah.
Because we thought that would at least make it easier for you to see the change.
So
Does anyone have a concern about voting this tonight?
I don't mind voting it tonight. I just want to make sure that we've done the adequate training of our staff relative to it, so they all understand it.
We have a question.
This is part of the policy, the bullying policy, is that we review and update the policy every 2 years. Is this the only review and update? Because I think it's been 2 years, so.
This is the second year.
This is the second,
This is the second year. So
right, so
is this counting as that review, I guess, is what you're asking?
That's my question.
I think it would, but because it's state law.
But we'll be doing any other kind of review of the policy.
That's a good question. I don't know, I'd have to ask if that the committee that was put together 3 years ago to write this.
Policy Review Committee?
Right.
Well, no, I'm talking about the bullying committee that technically wrote this template that was given to us by the state. Reviewed the template and changed about a dozen or so.
2 words.
Yeah. Yeah. So I don't know if that committee has to be the one that has to be called for.
Right.
I mean, I can look at it more closely.
Yeah, it just says that that's part of the law, that we do have to review and update the policy every 2 years. And also it mentions school bus drivers. So how is that addressed?
School bus drivers. I don't know. Okay.
Okay, so sticking with the anti-bullying policy
Unfunded mandate there too.
for a minute, we probably can vote to accept the lawful changes and then address whether or not it would go for a review of 2 years in doing so. And if not, then we will have to get the bullying committee together and do that, because that is law, part of it. And as far as the bus drivers go, if that is also law, then we'll have to do the bus drivers committee. Do we have a bus drivers committee?
No, because
No, because they're not employees of the
They're not
district.
employees, we have a contract with them, and that's all. And I've asked for years to see a copy of what the contract looks like and what their employee handbook looks like. I've always thought that that should be part of the whole, all of
So
this
perhaps
should
we
be
could
part of.
maybe get a hold of that?
Yeah.
Patty?
Amanda.
Okay.
An employee handbook by Len Gripko?
Yes,
Really? I want to see that.
I would think that that would be required.
That we see before we vote that everything's cool.
There's.
And Cindy, if there's the cost factor to going to the anti-bullying with the school bus drivers and what have you, it's an unfunded mandate. We need to request reimbursement
Get that down the road.
if it
So
costs us any money.
tonight, we are only voting to,
You're voting to accept the law
the
as
changes
amended by
as
the
the law.
governor. Yeah,
Okay.
That's all we're doing. We're not
Right.
voting that this is not a review of it.
right.
So can I have a motion for that? Second?
Second.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of? Opposed? Okay, moving on to JJAH.
One more policy. We are required by law to have a concussion policy, and I was sure that we did, but we did not. We have protocols. We have,
When they asked for it, we wrote one, but we made it protocol, not a policy.
Correct.
And so it never came here. So we've been following this for several years.
I know we've been following it. I have no problem with that. I have no problem with our procedures. What we've been doing is absolutely correct, but we now need, and we don't have to do obviously that tonight, but we do need to have a concussion policy on the books. So that's why that's being brought forward to you now.
So that's the first reading, and we'll vote on it next time?
Yeah.
I'd like to see that one. Anyone have any questions on that?
I just, when it, my only question was when it review and revision every 2 years, is there medical input into that, or at that point?
On the concussion policy?
Yeah.
I remember when we were discussing it, not the policy, but the procedures, there was medical input.
Well, it's just, and stuff like this where science is actually rapidly evolving, yeah.
We have to do a report, Phil, by September 1st of every year to the Department of Public Health. And that's a report that the nurses put together. And it's basically numbers and statistics from the previous year. And then they compile that, and the Department of Public Health then makes recommendations. So I consider that, the medical input across the state. Is that what you're asking?
I guess like the medical input would really be beyond the purview of our district because, the stuff that's coming out about subconcussive impacts and things like that, that's just really scary.
When
actually,
the coaches do their training, they're actually watching a video. We get it from Heads Up, which is set up by
the National High School Coaches Association.
So they're updating that video. So that's where the training is going to be updated because they have to watch it every year, watch it, answer the questions, take the little quiz, that kind of thing. And so I would say that's where we're getting the updating of the medical. And if anything, when you look through this, if there's anything within it that sounds like it's going to get itself outdated within a policy, then I think we can address it there. I think it's a pretty straightforward in the sense of remove from play and determining what those things are.
We have access to Darius Greenbacher, who is, our concussion guru, and he's our person that we go to. We send our student athletes to. So we have pretty direct communication with him.
But you are right, Phil. The science is changing like technology, very, very quickly. So again, if you find anything in here that needs to be addressed, we can certainly do that.
Anyone else? Okay, moving along to executive session minutes and open meeting.
Well, we've sort of already discussed this. I have been told that, I don't know if it's occurred on an annual basis, but you're supposed to release all of your executive session minutes. And October was chosen as the month to do that for the year's prior minutes, so.
Do you have the dates for them? I don't, because she doesn't, sometimes Donna makes us hold them back, she doesn't release them all.
I have May 14th and June 11th.
So, those are the only ones that,
I'm sorry, February 12th, May 14th, and June 11th.
give me the February again.
February 12th,
Yep.
May 14th,
Yep.
and June 11th.
So we only have 3 of them.
And the other committees, frankly, have only had one,
It's a slow year.
so.
February 20th.
And that's very good.
February 12th?
12.
Well, it's just collective bargaining stuff, so I don't. I ended up with 2 extra copies now.
Thank you.
Okay, so could I have a motion?
Move to release.
Second?
Second.
Any other comments or? Hearing none, all those in favor? Okay, reports. Any committees with reports, Bob?
Yes, the collaborative is a meeting I'm going to at noon on Thursday of this search committee, and we're going to select the screening committee to replace the executive director. The screening committee is going to be composed of 4 members of the collaborative board, 2 superintendents, 1 from Franklin, 1 from Hampshire, and then a ringer from somebody who's been a past board member or somebody from the community. They're going to narrow the applicants down, and at some point in time they'll bring 7 or 8, whatever the number come of qualified applicants to the whole board. So you should encourage your members from the elementary committees to actually set that day aside so that they can have their input when the selection comes up, because it's a big decision. The job is a very big job, pays a substantial salary. There's nobody in education, in public education, high school, what have you, that makes a salary equivalent to $190,000 plus fringes, okay, in the valley, and it's a big job. And the current executive director was planning on leaving in December, but if we're not finished our work, she's agreed to stay another month. I understand it, but if somebody wants to put their name forward as to for that alternate position or what have you, speak up and I'll bring your name forward. The meeting's on Tuesday, and it's a lot of work for whoever's going to do it, and it's a lot of work. I have a feeling who's going to be on it, but they asked for all board members to volunteer, so anybody that wanted
It's
it.
so appealing. I can't
know,
imagine
really.
people want to jump on it.
You know what
Are
I
you
mean?
encouraging us?
I'm just saying, if it's a big job, and people should be involved in getting their input in, because it's going to set an awful lot of policy. The executive director is all powerful. She can basically hire and fire, and the board has current board and the current director has the board currently doesn't have an awful lot of say as to what happens. We only hear the grievances when she fires somebody that's not happy.
And all of this will take place by December, hopefully.
That's what they're planning. I mean, the outside consulting is probably going to make $75,000 or $80,000 just to do the recruiting.
Any questions or comments for Bob?
And those meetings, collaborative meetings are public meetings. People are encouraged to come.
One more night.
I just figured I'd tell you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bob. Principal?
Yes, you should have a principal report in front of you. It's short, but things have been certainly busy this month. We had the successful open house on the 19th. It was kind of hard for me to judge for past years. I've had some teachers said it was a tremendous turnout, and some thought it was less than they've seen before. So I'm going to call that an even night for turnout. We completed all our safety drills for the start of the school year. It includes fire, lockdown, bus evacuation, emergency medical procedure drill. And we also had our 4-town safety meeting. Just let people know that we do that here. We have all the fire and police officials from all 4 towns come here, including state police, and just discuss safety of this building and throughout the district of all the buildings. So it's good to get everybody here to kind of get everybody on the same page. And we've been doing that. We do it twice a year now to keep that going. The exciting Dutch Exchange Program starts on Saturday, October 12th. So I believe we have, I forget how many students we have coming, 19 students coming to visit, as you know, and we'll be looking to send some back their way in the spring. So it's kind of it's a fun time for our school, and especially those students who are hosting those families. And then I thought I was going to do this first, but MCAS scores are later in the agenda, but we did have 31 Frontier students will be receiving the John and Abigail Adams Scholarship based on their achievements in mathematics, and so not based on their achievements on the MCAS test, rather. So that's always good news, and those students, obviously, that scholarship is free tuition to any in-state school. Not fees, but tuition. So as we know, fees sometimes are more than tuition. And then looking at the upcoming dates, I didn't do long write-ups on some of these. I could have, but we have Spirit Week coming up, PSAT tests, plan tests, the Fall Festival. We're going to do that again this year, which is a Saturday football game. We're trying to get a female, either field hockey or volleyball, but they have fallen through, unless you've heard anything new today, to go back-to-back. But it's kind of a Fall Festival day, followed by the football game. And in surface, Fish Fry, if you haven't bought your tickets yet, to support the DC trip that you'll be voting on soon, and then the end of the first quarter. So I did that as fast as possible.
That was fast.
What is trivia night tomorrow night?
What is more?
That's the Model UN Congress.
Model UN Congress is doing that to raise money for their new group, and so they're doing a trivia night up here. Yeah. So,
It's moratorium week.
moratorium, no field trips during the last week of the quarter.
Oh, okay.
Unless they're approved by me, if there's something substantial or not missing multiple classes that year.
Anyone else? Moving on to the superintendent.
Your report is in front of you. We had, as you know, because you were here, a special meeting for the Frontier Regional School Committee and all members of 4 town finance and select boards. That was on September 12th. As a result, we have formed 2 subcommittees. Andrea Lamas is chairing the Long Range Planning Committee, and their first meeting is October 24th. The Capital Exploration Committee is chaired by Scott Bergeron. I actually don't know if Scott has called a meeting for that. You're not aware of one? Okay. We will have another follow-up meeting on the 14th to hear their planning, and I would also at that time like to have a budget discussion for the upcoming budget year. We're in the process of updating our automatic response system. Currently we have Alert Now, but that has merged and been bought by Blackboard and Connect 5. I am going to be doing a training on that, so I can't tell you exactly the options that are updated, but apparently it is streamlined and will give us more options than currently Alert Now has. I went to the first MARS, Mass Association of Regional Schools meeting today. This was a professional development opportunity, primarily for new superintendents and budget development. It was 3.5 hours. It was very intense, but very informative. I learned a lot. And we have part 2 is in early December. On October 29th, we have scheduled a joint school committee meeting, and that is primarily because I am required by DESE regs to present to you my self-assessment and goals that I have set forth for this year. And in consultation, you need to review what I have set, and you need to adopt at least 1 professional and 1 professional practice goal and 1 student learning goal. I do have 5 goals, and I need the committee's input for that. And the other thing that I'm required to do on an annual basis is to submit a multi-hazard evacuation plan. So I've written a draft. We have a principals meeting tomorrow at 8, and I'm going to present it to the principals for their opinions. This is frankly, how you would handle a major event or disaster, including how you would communicate with people throughout the district, who would communicate, who would be notified, and it's a very, very kind of strategic protocol. It's a good thing to have. So I will bring that to you at the next meeting. And that's what
Would
I
that
have.
involve security of the building?
No. It involves security insofar as contacting police and fire.
Okay.
Who's the spokesperson? How would you communicate with families? Where would be that kind of command post where parents would come if there was a disaster?
But if there was something like happened in Connecticut, with that, all those shootings down there, this wouldn't include any preparation or something to the effect?
Yeah, it's primarily how you communicate once the event has occurred.
All right, and protocols to try to prevent it?
Not the evacuation plan. Okay, this is strictly an evacuation protocol.
Anyone else have anything to say?
So you all know that we lost Tim Meredith last week, and I just wanted to thank Marty publicly because she was, in a word, amazing. Thank you. It was a rough week, and you certainly were there and made it a little easier.
Thank you. I joked with the kids because I spent my week in Sunderland last week, and I thought my last lunch duty was over. And a little first grader came up to me and pulled the cheek of his mouth and said, "Could you look at this? I've got a problem." It all came flooding back to me, But I appreciate your sentiments. It was my honor and pleasure. So, and having been principal there, it was sort of deja vu in many respects. So, but thanks. But I think we're on a good track now.
Thank you. It was, yeah. I'm glad you were there for us.
Just the planning committees and the exploration committees that we've set in motion. I would just like to urge a note of caution about embarking on this process, because I don't think that there is a possibility of a mutually satisfactory outcome. So I don't think that we're capable of giving them what they want, and I don't think they're willing to give us what we want. So
that may be true, but remember, I promised that we would explore this last year. And I think it's important to go through the process, regardless of what the outcome is. Because I think people need to have a voice, and they need to have input. And we may be in the same place that we started at. I'd like to think we're be a little further ahead, but I'm also not naive. But I do think we need to have a forum for everyone to have a voice.
So I think one thing that in the next meeting, there is an opportunity to educate our friends in the finance. I think that these people, to a person, as far as I know, they mean well. My problem is that what some of them don't know about school finance is more than enough to hurt me. And there is a specific factual dispute, I think, or an opportunity for learning. And I've attempted to sort of distill what the actual misunderstanding is, at least in my discussions with my finance committee friends. And it's this. Why is it, this is my attempt, why is it that a relatively modest cut results in disparate or widespread effects? And then what the corollary to that is, why would, say, an agreement to guarantee that we'll never ask, say, for more than 2.5% per year from any town will in fact trigger at some point disparate, unpleasant effects beyond what you would think a modest cut would trigger?
But I do think it's an opportunity to educate, because I asked the question today at my meeting. I said, one of the things that I have found very difficult to explain is that even if you present a level funded budget, but the assessments are high in one town and low in another town. Even if that level funding required that you cut 12 positions in order to achieve that, there is seemingly no appreciation of that if their assessments then went up to 7 or 8%. And is there a way, and Patty and I actually talked about it today, is there a way to try to explain that in simple terms so that people can wrap their heads around it? Because you don't develop a budget by looking at last year's expenditure sheet and saying, oh, we were over here, we were under here, we'll make it, you develop a budget by what are your goals and desires to achieve for your organization. Then you put the dollar amounts in.
Actually,
So, excuse me, so I do think it's an opportunity to educate as well as have the discussion.
Yeah.
So we're going to work
Please.
on that. Anyone else?
Well, I think it's very important that we go in this, and everybody looks at all the possibilities and where we're missing and where we're not. I mean, there's an awful lot of state aid that's going down the road simply because it's not a K-12 or a K-6. All the school bus transportation in the elementary schools is not reimbursed. At Frontier it is. That's a big number. And there is disparity between the salaries in the superintendency union as to Frontier. And someday they're going to have to bite the bullet if the teachers aren't happy with it. And but that's one of the whole things that's holding it back.
Anyone else?
Please sign the warrants.
Do you have a motion to adjourn?
You got it.
Second? All those in favor?
I haven't signed it.
You didn't look at them.
And did everyone get calendars? I have extra.